You know that expression that's like, unless you live under a rock, you know XYZ thing? I don't even think that expression can be applied to what I'm about to say, because even if you live under a rock, you are feeling the impacts of inflation. It's just that's where we're at in the world, okay? Now, in conjunction with everything getting more expensive and like my spending, I realized that throughout COVID, I definitely started spending more money. And I'm not the only one. You let me know in the comments if you've done this too, but I feel like as we were like inside and couldn't really go and do a whole lot, because like my biggest like hobby, if you will, is traveling, and obviously I couldn't do that. So like getting joy from other things, and since my default from my childhood is shopping and consumerism, I definitely like was trending back towards that during COVID. And I know it's not just me, probably you too, but a lot of people in my life, same thing, started shopping a lot more. And I started to realize this just as inflation started to creep up, and also as we're emerging back into the world a lot more. Like in 2020, if you had told me that by 2022 life would seemingly be just about normal, I don't know if I had believed you. But because of the combination of all of these things, I started taking a really close look at my finances and going through them with a fine-tooth comb. And the comparison of money that I spent on shopping, if you will, before the pandemic and during the pandemic is crazy. It was a lot. Because during that time, I wanted a brown sweater. I'm going on Poshmark and I'm finding a brown sweater. I want a trampoline to do more exercises at home instead of the gym. I go and buy the refurbished trampoline. So I had to start reining it in, and as I did that, my things I talked myself out of buying list, it's gone up a lot. And so I wanted to make this video for you to talk about it. So I'm kind of resetting my lifestyle in so many ways right now. Obviously, I just moved to Austin. Hope the audio is better for you guys. Hope the lighting is good. If we like the new setup, let me know. So I don't know if per se I'll make a whole like series out of things I've talked myself out of buying, but these are some of my favorite videos to make, and I'd love to hear in the comments if there's anything you've talked yourself out of buying. And we're getting into it, but I do want to give a huge thank you to the sponsor of this portion of the video, which is Wealthfront. If you don't have your money that you're not immediately spending in a high yield cash or saving account, you are quite literally losing money. If you didn't know, inflation is currently at 8.2%. Do I know anything about numbers and money? I don't know that much about it. But what I do know is that my wife keeps telling me inflation is really high, and that means that whatever money is sitting in your bank account is worth around 8.2% less. You take that money and you put it into a Wealthfront account, and they'll give you a return on that money so that you're losing less money. Neither of us are financial experts, but like Wealthfront, they are, and they know what they're doing. Honestly, I've been keeping all of my money that's not my immediate spending money in my bank account in a Wealthfront account for years, so I couldn't be happier to partner with them. And my account with Wealthfront has the highest interest rate I have seen of any accounts offered. They currently just upped their APY to 3.3%, which is 15 times the national average, and like I said, the highest I have seen. And as I've talked about a few times already on this channel, and as you can see from where I'm sitting, we just bought what we are considering our forever home, and Wealthfront really helped us while saving with that because they have categories. So you get this 3.3% APY on all of the money in your Wealthfront account, but then you can separate it out to see exactly what you're saving for. So right now, I no longer have to put money in my house account because we were able to get the house after years of saving, but I still have other categories like kids, saving for the expenses that's going to take. Travel, I always have a travel fund going, and I'm getting 3.3% return on all of that money. And the way this works for all of us who are not financial experts is federal interest rates have gone up this year. If you know anything about the housing market, you know they're skyrocketing. This means banks have been earning more on your savings or the money in your accounts. Wealthfront passes on a larger percentage of that increase to you. And they are FDIC insured up to $2 million. So I highly recommend you get yourself an account, just because as we're not buying things, we also want to be not losing money while it's just sitting in our account. So head to wealthfront.com/Shelby and sign up. So as we're on the other side of COVID, tell me you didn't order a lot more takeout food during that time. Over the last 2 years, your amount of food that you've ordered to your house has increased. Am I crazy? No, it definitely has. I realized how much I was spending on delivery food when I went through and did my budget, and I have taken a very, very, very steep step back from ordering in food to my house. And that's one of the things that I am just going to talk myself out of buying as much of. My goal for the rest of the year, and then probably carried on into the new year, is to only order like delivery food or to go out on the weekends. And now that going out can feel special again and not just like getting delivery delivery food is like the only thing you can do. Like going out, getting dressed and going somewhere and socializing is a very intentional thing to do. And so I plan to not get as much delivery food and limit when I pay someone else to make food for me to the weekends. With inflation and the way the world is looking, I gotta talk myself out of some of it. You know what I mean? Tell me I'm not alone. Okay, now I have a fun story for you. If you didn't already know, planned obsolescence is something that I am incredibly passionate about. Within the sustainability realm, there are a few things that really get me going. Eutrophication, planned obsolescence, what else? I don't even know. Those things are the biggest things to me. And a lot of the things I talk myself out of buying have to do with this house. So of course, one of the first things is when we moved in here, the people who sold us this house, they had only been here since 2019. And so they left the appliances, the fridge, obviously the stove and all that, but the washer dryer, they left it. And so the one that we had at our old house was something we bought used, and it worked great and it was fine, but they were older, not so cute. And we figured, I mean, the ones in this house are from 2019. They should last us for so long. I should have known better. I should have known better.
Planned obsolescence is something that I am incredibly passionate about.
After about 3 weeks of living here, our washer stops working. It's not turning on. No power coming to this washer, which makes no sense because there was power coming to the plug. We checked it, okay. Long story short, we get someone out here to tell us what it's gonna cost to repair it, and he tells us that between the parts and the labor, it's gonna cost about half the price of the washer. There's nothing that pisses me off more than hearing that. And on top of that, what really sucks is that the technician also told us we would probably be better off just buying a whole new machine. Financially, it makes more sense to spend the $800 to get a new machine than to spend $400 to repair it. But to me, the part of planned obsolescence baked into all of this is the fact that the brands don't take responsibility for repairing their shitty product. If your product breaks within 3 years, if I spent hundreds of dollars for this thing and it breaks in 3 years, it should be your responsibility to fix it. And if not, you're just planning for me to have to go through the headache and spend the money to fix your shitty product. It should be your responsibility to make sure that the thing that you sold me works. And it has a 10-year warranty, but apparently that only applies to the motor. So I don't know if this is specifically something I talked myself out of, although the option was presented to me and obviously crossed my train of thought. Of course, $400 is cheaper than $800, but if I have to do it again in 3 years, I don't know. It blows my mind. So I guess technically one of the things I talked myself out of because of my entire knowledge and frustration with this entire ideal of planned obsolescence is a new washer. And it is gonna take weeks for us to get someone in here to fix it because it takes weeks for the part to come in. But all these downsides considered, I talked myself out of getting a new washer. We just replaced the part, and hopefully that will fix the problem, because what if it doesn't? You never know. But all of those little things that I just discussed is why I love making this type of video. I think it's important to really be conscious of the things that we buy, because everything we buy has an impact on the planet. I know that over the last few years, sustainability has really been sold as things that you buy. You buy this thing because it's more sustainable, and you buy this thing because it's reusable. But in reality, the most sustainable thing you can do is not buy anything. And I do think there are still plenty of instances where you need something. A lot of times it's consumables, right? Body care products. Buy a more sustainable version of that when you run out, all those sort of things. But I think more than anything, it's important to be intentional about the things we're buying. And as I talk through each of these things, you're starting to maybe hopefully spark how it looks to think through a purchase and do it consciously. That's kind of why I love this video. That's my favorite thing. So at the new house, if you saw in my first welcome to the new house video, I'll try to link it up here. But I sat outside in my little hanging chair. And one of the things I've talked myself out of is another one of those hanging chairs. So if you follow the vlog channel, you would know that I found the chair outside secondhand from someone on Facebook or Craigslist. Sometimes I can't remember where I find these people. But I told myself I was gonna wait however long it took, I was gonna find my hanging chair. And I waited weeks to find the one that I wanted, checking obsessively to find it in those sort of things. But I talked myself out of buying a second one new. And I really, really would like to have 2 matching hanging chairs on the porch, because I think it would look great. But you know what? Is that aesthetic really worth the cost it takes to produce a new item? And does that really align with what I believe? And this might seem a little bit nitty-gritty, a little bit obsessive, but it kind of is. I very much think that like aesthetics should not be more important than the planet. And even though I'm just one person, and this is just one little purchase, at the core of who I am, that's what I believe. And in reality, when you buy anything, it has to be extracted from this earth, shipped all over who knows where. A lot of energy goes into manufacturing these things, and a lot of people are exploited all throughout that process. And do I think all of that is worth it for me to have a cute little aesthetic porch? I don't. And yes, it's just one purchase, but at the end of the day, like if I have mismatching hanging chairs out there, it's still gonna be cute, and I can definitely find it secondhand, and I don't have to have such a big impact on the planet. That's kind of how I talked myself out of buying another hanging chair, just by realizing that that purchase wouldn't align with my personal like beliefs. Okay, and speaking of this one particular outdoor chair, and since I keep talking about referencing the fact that I just moved, why is it so common for people to move and buy all new shit for their house? So I watch a lot of YouTubers, and like a few of the people I watch, they recently got new homes and renovated them, which is so fun for them. I don't have the cash flow to buy like an old house and renovate it. I mean, this one was old, but I didn't have to renovate it. We're sidebarring. We're ADHDing over here. But I feel like so many people, when they move, they just donate all their shit and they go buy all new shit. And who can afford to do that, for one? I don't really understand that. It doesn't comprehend in my brain. Like the person I went to brunch with yesterday, we were walking home and we were like, how is there enough money in the world to go around? Like, how do people just spend money and they just keep going and life just goes on and the economy just kind of sort of works? Not really, but you know what I mean. Like, where does all this money come from? It is harder to be the person on the internet who sees everybody else get a new house and design it how they want and make it beautiful and lovely and all these things quickly. They do it in like a month span. You're seeing them move out of their house, move into a new house, renovate a new house, furnish the whole thing, and it's beautiful and it's done. What I had to talk myself out of is that it doesn't all have to be done so quickly. I can still make my home what I want it to be. I can still have a house and curate it to what I love without having to do it in a rush and buying all new things. And it does feel like so exciting in the beginning, and you want to replace this and do that and get rid of this and get a new thing. But I really had to take a step back and be like, just because everybody else does this quickly and they get all this new stuff as soon as they move in, doesn't mean you have to. This is all just instant gratification. We've all been so trained with the economy and like the world that we live in now, that if you want something, you hit 2 buttons and it can be at your house the next fucking day. The rate at which we are consuming things in the Western world is not sustainable. We are consuming more resources every year on this earth than the earth can replace. Yeah, that realization is definitely how I talked myself out of buying new couches. On the flip side of that, I definitely want a vintage feel to this house. Like, I want this house to feel very more eclectic than the last one, hence like this plant display. Do you guys remember the other house? My plant display was very well, it was kind of chaotic a little bit, but this house feels very more eclectic, groovy, 70s. This house was built in the 70s, so it makes sense to curate this house to that vibe, in addition to the realization of instant gratification being fucked on our brains and the planet. I just kind of think the feel of a secondhand vintage piece will be a lot more meaningful than the cheap stuff that really just doesn't last these days. That's a whole other topic. Like the fact that a couch from the 60s still exists and people want it and it is good quality. I don't know. There's just something to be said for that. But anyway, yeah, that's how I talk myself out buying new furniture for the house. Like I see everybody else doing. Well, there are a few more things on here, like things I talk myself out of buying new that I want to buy secondhand, and I'll just list those off. These are things that I do think I can fully find secondhand. One of the things is a salad spinner. It's been a mission to find a salad spinner. I have not found one, and I've been looking for it for a couple months, but I'm not going to buy it new because I know there are people selling them out there secondhand, and I know I can also find one in a thrift store. A dining room table, well, right now we have one in there, but it's actually an outdoor table. If you watch the vlog, I went through all of this. We found a table, put it in here because obviously we'll use it more in here, but really it's an outdoor table, and so it will move outside once we find a dining room table. But the dining room table pretty much fits in with the whole why we didn't buy a bunch of new furniture. So whatever. We're not going to buy one new though. We're going to wait. We're going to wait it out because we went 3 years without a dining room table. We can go a few more months while trying to find the perfect secondhand piece. Lighting fixtures. There's a lighting fixture over here that's a fire hazard. That one has to go. And since we have to replace that one, one, I definitely got in the mindset of, well, I'm just gonna replace it. I'm gonna find a light fixture I like and I'm gonna put it there and it's gonna be done. But in reality, I can just not use that light in the dining room, especially since there wasn't a dining room table there, for a few months while I try to find a vintage light fixture for there, or at least one secondhand. And I already have my eyes on one very specific one on eBay, waiting for the price to drop because it's a little crazy. But a light fixture new is something that I definitely could justify. It is kind of a necessity. It is something that I'm only gonna buy once. It's gonna stay there for like decades. I definitely think that that is a purchase that could be justified to buy new, but I realize it just doesn't need to be done quickly. And if I give anything a little bit of patience, I will find the right thing. Okay, I've been talking for a long time, so hopefully this gets those juices flowing and helps you understand what conscious consumerism actually looks like. It very much is exactly what we just went through, really thinking through your purchases and justifying them and asking if they align with your values, asking if they're good quality, asking, you know, what kind of impact is this going to have on the planet in terms of resource use, but also the exploitation that happens across almost every supply chain. It's very difficult to avoid human exploitation in any supply chain. So I feel like buying secondhand surpasses that because you're not directly supporting the person that exploited those people. And so I definitely think it makes sense to think through all of that before you make any purchase. It just seems to be like the right thing to do, in my opinion. So I'd love to hear your comments in the comment section if any of this was helpful or if you've talked yourself out of buying anything recently. Don't forget to check out today's sponsor, Wealthfront, because honestly, they're incredible. I'm a longtime user of Wealthfront, and in this economy, it's silly not to be using them. So I'll leave the link at the top of the description. And remember, until next time, you cannot do all the good that the world needs, but the world needs all the good that you can do. Bye, guys.